People around the world, particularly European voters, are still recovering from the shock waves of the recent general election in March in Italy. The ruling Democratic Party suffered significant losses, while new powers such as the Five Star Movement and the Anti-Immigration League Party took a considerable number of seats. However, no party was able to form an outright majority in the Hung Parliament resulted. As yet, no government has been formed, and the details remain to be released. What are the reasons for such a dramatic change of the Italian political map? What will be the new challenges? Today, at the Boer Forum for Asia, I'm very much honored to sit next to our old friend, Mr. Romano Prodi, former Italian Prime Minister. This is Dialogue. I'm Yang Rui. Thank you for coming, sir.
I am happy to be here.
What do you think of the results of the latest general election in your country? Everybody was surprised that the two political forces that came from nowhere won the campaign on the platform of populism.
You know, this was particularly quick in Italy, but it's a general movement. The ideologies, the old ideologies, are disappearing from the European policy. Think to the German elections. Christian Democratic and Socialist are half of the electorate, you know, and a few years ago they were 90%. And I speak about Germany, that is the most solid, let's say, based, and the parties are the best organized in Europe, you know. So it's a general trend. In Italy it's been very quick, unexpected. Expected in the direction, unexpected in speed. So now there are clearly difficulties to shape the government. Thanks God, in our Constitution, the President of the Republic, who has no much power in normal times, is very powerful when there is a crisis. And he organizes and decides who will be in better position to organize the future government, you know. So now the President of the Republic is working, not an easy job.
But I'm afraid you won't be able to form a clear majority government. What about the future of having a hung parliament?
Look, even the former one was split and hung, you know. Then the agreement was going on for 5 years, you know. So the problem is now to, like in Germany, you needed almost 6 months to have a government, you know, in a country in which it was so easy in the past. Because remember that the democratic system is more and more complicated because the society becomes more and more diversified. And if you have an electoral law, like in France, that obliges people to stick together, you can shape a government easy. If, like in Germany or Italy or Holland or Spain, we have not this situation, to shape a government is more and more difficult. We have not anymore the old ideologies that were shaping the political party.
And part of the ramifications concerning what you said in the analysis, I'm afraid, is the absence of traditional political forces. In the case of France, for example, Emmanuel Macron didn't have any party affiliation, and yet he won the strong support from the young men and young women. What do you think of the use of the social media in aligning the general public behind the most powerful and convincing presidential candidate?
Of course. It's a natural consequence. If you have not ideology, socialist or liberalism, and you vote on the short-term impression, you know, on the emotion, social media are incredibly important for the emotion. And in the social media, remember that there is no mediation. You have people to people, you know. And
I like the idea, a dialogue between ordinary folks on a level playing field?
Yeah, me too. I like this idea of expressing people, but not the emotional type of reaction. So you have the same people that today support one, the day after the other one, you know. So in politics, you need continuity.
But I'm afraid the European counterparts of this newly elected Italian Prime Minister are likely to be embarrassed by the simple fact that this young man comes from obscurity, nowhere. He doesn't have any decent tertiary education. So how could he possibly persuade other European leaders to accept Italy as an influential economy or a major power?
Well, it's not you. You know, the just elected Austrian Prime Minister is even younger. You know.
Even younger.
You have an incredible change in history. This is a real revolution.
This is the revolution.
Yeah, without blood.
One small step short of the French Revolution in 1789.
Yeah, this was bloody.
It didn't have any violence, but a peaceful revolution.
Absolutely intense, you know, because when you have the old parties unable to arrive together more than 1/3 of the votes. So this is a complete revolution, done peacefully because of democracy, but it's a revolution. And Italy, look, Italy is a country in which, you know, the political sensibility is very deep, is very, you know, we have a long tradition of political analysis, political fighting, you know. It's if you look at history, history never repeats, you know, but Mussolini was the teacher of Hitler, and if you look, that is more important, the post-war period, the first Communist Party splitting from Moscow, from Soviet Union, was the Italian one. You know, there is this sense of understanding the change of history, you know, and so...
Mr. Prodi, the issue, by the end of the day, I'm afraid, is whether democracy still works. Is liberal democracy as an ideology is receding into insignificance, and it is populism that takes much of the blame. And therefore, the other issue, if I may, is whether the mode of China's development should be given serious considerations.
From some point of view, you are right, but remember that in many cases, populism was used strongly before elections. But when elections were done, even the populists, let's say, understand that you cannot change the society in an unwise manner. If you take Italy, you know, before the elections, the two populist parties were telling, we don't want the euro, we don't want Europe. Now they are telling, look, we want to reform the behavior of Europe. We want that the political management of the euro is wiser. You know, they change their opinion. It's not a break-up. Let's say we want to change from democracy to an authoritarian system. You know, it's just, you know, and when you have this deep change in society, you generally you have an election campaign that gives premium to people who want a total change, and they exploited that. But that if they will be asked to run the country, they will behave, in my opinion, in a more traditional way, because otherwise it will be a disaster, even in economy, you know. And this is the new. But and then, you know, populism is a straight, take the East European countries, in which populism, as in Hungary, just recently you had elections, when you make the opinion poll, if you ask, do you like the European policy? And the answer is no. Do you like how we have been treated by Brussels? They say no. Do you want to get out of Europe? They say no, no, no. Because, they work on a national type interest, but they never want to go too far, except UK, but this is a different history. This is a different history because in United Kingdom, the debate about Europe has always been, open in the society. I have been president of the European Commission, very responsible of number one of European policy, and every day I had problems with the British government, rebates, different policy, because in that case you had the society that was divided by some sort of American or European league, I am personally sorry about Brexit, but I didn't find it so strange, I found...
One major reason for young anti-establishment parties to rise to prominence, I'm afraid, is the issue of asylum seekers and refugees. Now, do you think this will be a major crisis looming larger and larger on the horizon in continental Europe?
You are correct. This is the problem number one.
Number one reason?
One reason,
For the political setbacks of the traditional political forces?
Was always some sort, because it's new for Europe, We are not like United States. From this point of view, we have always been similar to China, No big flood of immigration in the last century, And so when the migration started, there was fear and uneasiness. But the real problem was when migration was unchecked because of the two wars, Syrian war and Libyan war. And so you pass from fear of immigration, but in some way controlled, to some sort of fear that you don't control, because people arrive with the boats unchecked, they have no document. And so the media look at that, and people are more and more afraid.
Do you have this strong suspicion that members of the ISIL may have, found their way into the refugee army and maybe make contributions to the lone wolf attacks, the terrorist attacks?
Maybe, but...
you have no solid evidence to show that they...
Look, the terrorists, they have the possibility to enter legally in the state. They can have fake documents, they can have... This is real poor people.
Well, the refugees without documents is one thing, but the old part of Europe, Rumsfeld said, is getting very old because of the welfare policy and the lack of a competitive edge. Therefore, the shortage labor force comes across as something that undermines your strength. What do you think of the large Muslim population who might be well educated, who will become the major force, labor force, and manufacturing will not be disappearing because of the emergence of labor force from Arab countries?
Look, there is, it's more complicated because you have fear.
You feel very painful.
No, you have fear of immigration, but you have a lot of young unemployment. So in terms of labor, the immigrants, they do the jobs that Italians don't want to do, or the French don't want to do. The great problem, the propaganda, is related to jobs and so on. But when you read the reality, they don't take jobs of Italian because they are low-skilled immigrants, you know, and nobody of our new generation want to clean houses or take care of old people. You mentioned old people, but the women, generally women, who take care of old people are all foreign.
Thank you so much. You're watching Dialogue with Mr. Romano Prodi, former Italian Prime Minister. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break. What about EU-China relationship?
I am worried about a change, you know. Clearly, Chinese competition has always been, I can say, for many people, too strong.
We don't think investment in AC Milan football team is a good idea.
Yeah, me too. I told you. That is the only mistake of the Chinese.
So what is democracy in the new era?
This is the deep change. We are passing from an ideological democracy to a delivery democracy.
Welcome back, sir. What about EU-China relationship? This is a more interesting topic against the backdrop of the current trade war between the United States and China. Do you think China will get closer to Airbus and will be a popular partner in the European market as a result?
Well, look, I am worried.
You are worried?
I am worried because clearly the populistic party are sharing Trump ideology.
Fears about immigration.
Yeah, immigration. But for China, I am worried about a change, you know. Clearly, Chinese competition has always been, I can say, for many people, too strong for the organization of U.S. or European industry. You know, this is not new. But then we started to have Chinese investment in Europe. We start to have increase of salaries in China and change. And so I was a little optimist on that. But what is happening is that in the last years the European mood is changing. The American mood was already changing when a Chinese company tried to buy a meat processing company in the U.S. This company, meat processing, was declared strategic. I don't know how, you know. And in Europe we were laughing. But because the Chinese investment went up and up in technology, after the purchase of a robot company in Germany, KUKA, that is the #1 in robots, the public opinion in Europe is a little more fearful about China. And I think, this is my thing, that we have to be in a hurry to discuss and to negotiate all our rules of trade and investment. Let's say to be very, let's say, patents, intellectual, let's say, heritage or intellectual content of industry. We have really to be in a hurry.
Given the unpredictability of the Trump administration and the presidency itself, Chancellor Angela Merkel said that European Union should take the future of themselves into their own hands. What do you think of the presidency of Donald Trump, who launched the trade war, who threatens to antagonize not only competitors but also allies? He has pulled out of so many global commitments.
My opinion is very clear, you know. I think that to start a trade war is a tragedy for everybody, because you know how you start and you...
The issue is whether the European Union will benefit from the trade standoff between Washington and Beijing. You don't think so?
Not at all.
Romano, you know, I'm not a big fan of politics, because I've been talking about politics in the interview for years, since 1999 when I first took it over. Now let's talk about something else concerning the appeal of Italy as a country, economy, market, community, whatever. Other than football, cuisine, fashion, what else do you have to attract the Chinese tourists?
Look, if you take the simple statistics, we don't export to China fashion, food, primary, mechanics. Very sophisticated. More than 40% of our export is sophisticated machinery. Let's say packaging, marble working, woodworking, metal working, and this is more than 40% is only mechanics. Then with chemical and others, we export sophisticated industry. But remember, this is important for China, because now China is obsessed by the dimension of the company, of the enterprise, you know, big, 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 big. We have no one big company, no one. Fiat.
You only have small and medium-sized family businesses.
But we have a couple of thousand of medium, small companies, let's say from $50 million to $2 billion, this size, you know. Very specialized, very focused, that export so much. And a country like Italy, we have no raw material. We have no land for agriculture. We are like China. And we have a surplus in our trade, in spite of poor region in the south of Italy, you know. Why? Because we have this skill of companies that are specialized, but big enough to be global. You don't need to be an enormous company to be
I
global.
cannot wait to have an answer from you about why you have got so many brilliant football players.
Oh, well, this is another
performance.
problem. We lost the qualification for the World Championship, and the country is
That's the
humiliated
country
by
setback.
that. Don't tell me
on.
that until then. But you know, it's funny because I don't know if you like that, but when I have seen that quite a few Chinese have bought Italian football teams, I was joking, but I thought, look, this is the most negative news about China. Because when you start to invest in football, you always lose money.
We all lose our money?
Yes.
And that's why we don't think the investment in AC Milan football team is a good idea.
Yeah, me too. I told you that is the only mistake of the Chinese.
But still, we encourage Italy to export football culture. That's very important for
football culture, yes, because we have good trainers. We have
but never ever export politics from Italy. Because you have a very controversial politician like Silvio Berlusconi who might make a political comeback through the election. Why does he appeal to the voters so many years despite the corruption charges and the Banga party?
Look, but when you talk about, when I was talking about revolution, the real losers in the revolution has been the Democratic Party, center-left, and Berlusconi parties. In the center-right coalition is not anymore the leading politicians. So till 3 months ago you could say that. Now it's a completely, totally different situation. It's a very, very, is in a corner, let us put it this way.
Do you think Mr. Berlusconi has been seduced by the beautiful sunshine of the Mediterranean Sea? And he has also invited daughters of Vladimir Putin to come over and make holiday together in his coastal summer resort?
No, because you know that if you take the Italian public opinion, the relation with Putin are generally much more favorable than not only United States but in other European countries. There is a long tradition of, let's say, historical cooperation, you know. St. Petersburg is Italian architecture, the histories, and so it was not a problem of Berlusconi, but it's an attitude of all the Italian society to be in some way friend with Russia.
Will he become the Prime Minister in the foreseeable future? What's the chance for him to take the center stage again?
Berlusconi? No one.
No way.
No way. No way, because as I told you, he is now a junior partner in his own coalition. So there is no possibility. He told himself, you know.
You don't think he's a man of credibility?
No, he lost the elections.
But is he still very popular?
No.
No.
No, because he had 14% of the votes, and so he's 14% popular. Democracy is like that, you know.
So what is democracy in the new era? Very quickly.
No, it's difficult to tell you because it's not anymore linked to ideology, and this is the revolution, you know. And so it's linked to delivery. And this is why, generally, the government parties, they lose the elections.
Because they fail to give deliverables.
Yeah, because people are never happy about deliveries. And so this is the deep change. We are passing from an ideological democracy to a delivery democracy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prodi, for sharing with us your expertise and experiences on democracy, the economics, politics, as well as foreign relationship. You are an old friend of China. I hope you stay healthy and enjoy sunshine, not only of the Mediterranean, but the
Look, I started to be in China in 1985, and I always been familiar with China. So
you witnessed the great changes that have taken place in my country. It's a long time. Many years, this is a small step for mankind.
Okay, all right. Thank you for your wisdom.
Thank you so much.